Welcome to Dice Tower Live.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel and welcome to Live Top 10 Best of 2018 on the Dice Tower. Today is December 27th. We are halfway between Christmas and New Year's. Woo! Some of you are back to work. I'm so sorry. Well, I'm at work, but I like my job. So today we're going to do one of the most controversial top 10s probably. Yesterday was certainly probably the most with art. I'm told how dumb and how non-artistic I am on my choices of art. Well, here we go. Now we're taking a look at innovative games, the top 10 innovative games of 2018. A couple things. First of all, haven't played every game from 2018, but I played a lot. Secondly, what am I looking for in an innovative game? I'm looking for the kind of game that feels like it offers something new. Now, every year, there's very few things that are like totally new. There just is. So I'm looking at each game, kind of looking for something that feels different in its genre sometimes, something that feels unique, something that I haven't really seen done before. And, well, this is kind of my choices for that. Me saying these games are unique and interesting and different doesn't mean necessarily that I love all these games. So let's get started. So number 10. This is not the first list that my number 10 has shown up on. This very rarely, like I just played a stacking game yesterday where we stack stuff, and it felt like every other stacking game I've ever played. This one I thought took dexterity games in a different level. So my number 10 is Tokyo Highway. Can I turn up the mic? The mic is pretty high. People complain when I turn it up higher, but I will turn it up quickly. No, I can't turn it up higher than that. That's pretty high. It will blow some people's eardrums out. Sorry. So anyhow, so my number 10, Tokyo Highway. Tokyo Highway is a game that takes the dexterity games, and you're crisscrossing these popsicle sticks and driving these cars around. You're not actually driving the cars, but this dexterity game I thought was innovative and different because the placement of it, the dexterity is almost a secondary nature to the game. It still matters, but you're trying to crisscross each other's paths. So there's some strategy, and you're definitely interacting with the other players. That being said, it kind of looks like a work of art when you're done. So, but a lot of dexterity games do. But the way this one forces some direct interaction and allows it to make the highways in an organic way, I thought really was a little bit different than many of the other games in the dexterity genre. So this is my number 10, Tokyo Highway. All right, number 9. By the way, if you're hearing some buzzing, they decided to cut the grass right now. So they're outside cutting the grass. They'll finish at some point, I'm sure. All right, so number 9 takes that continual trend that we're seeing each year of marrying board games with electronics. And this one took a step that I haven't seen done too often. A few games have done it over the course of the year, but it adds the internet, and that is Detective, a modern crime story. So, Detective, you're trying to solve some crimes. It's a cooperative game. You're working together. There's some set cases in this game. But to solve these cases, you are using a portal. It's a website of sorts that has information on it. And you're going to hear maybe some stuff, some audio. You're going to look up different things. But you also can look up actual historical events on the internet and find out things that will help you solve your case. Now, there's not a lot more I can show you beyond this picture. There's a case book and different characters. And it's all made up. But there are actual historical backings for some of the things that happen, and you can look things up. Now, this isn't the only game. I also considered doing that puzzle game that, I forget the name of it, that me and Melody and my wife tried, where we were like solving a mystery of where someone, of a murder and things like that. And I find this mixing of the internet with an actual board game to be a pretty cool combo. Detective does that in a way that I think we'll see more games do it in the future, but it did it in one of the best ways possible. So that's Detective, Modern Crime. Oh, there is more pictures in here. Yeah, as you show all the different cases here and stuff. So, Detective, Modern Crime, my number 9. All right, my number 8 is very similar, and people are like, wait a minute, those games are almost exactly the same. No, they're not. This one has a very different feel to it, and that is Chronicles of Crime. Now, these are the same theme. Chronicles of Crime is much lighter than Detective Mind Crime Story. But where Chronicles of Crime really shines is using the QR codes. Now, games have tried to use QR codes before. You see the QR codes here on everything. You know, they're all over this game. Games have tried to use these before in various ways. This does it in a very seamless fashion where I could ask Dr. King about this guy, I could ask him about her, and things will show up. There's a dynamic thing where you're looking around the room for clues. 3D viewer you can get with this game as you use your phone. You're going to look around at a case for clues, then you find those clues and you can scan them. And it's a technology thing, right? And some people are like, this is some gimmick and all. But it's a gimmick that works really well. And so I don't think this is the same as Detective Mind Crime Story. They both have a similar, the theme. But Detective is about utilizing the internet and doing research. Chronicles of Crime is more about asking people their questions and trying to figure out the right set of clues, both of them to solve cases. I like them a lot. All right. Number 7 is, there's actually 2 games that came out this year that use the same thing. One of them just came out. But this is the first one that uses a book as part of the game, and that is Stuffed Fables. Now, Stuffed Fables was a sequel of sorts to Mice and Mystics. And Mice and Mystics had a board and you went through on quests and fought things. And it was a role-playing game. Stuffed Fables, a children's or a family game, had you going through a book, and then you would go through that book and different things would happen and you would read them on the page, and then you'd flip to another page in the book and it would have you turn to other pages. This gave you an infinite amount of boards, not infinite, but I mean a lot of boards for your game that you didn't have to build. And a lot of dungeon crawlers, you have to build them. Instead, you're just flipping through a book, and then there would be things here, stories, nice text in the book, even lessons on working with kids. And I thought it did a good job at mixing this story with the game itself in a very seamless, good fashion. Also had a pretty neat dice pulling system in it, which could count for the innovation, but it's the usage of the book that makes Stuffed Fables my number 7. All right, number 6. Now, number 6 I was careful on because number 6 feels very innovative to me, and thousands of other people have played it, while wargamers would say, wait, we've been playing coin games for years. So I'm going to say this one's innovative because it took a fairly complex game with asymmetrical sides, war game, and made it available for the masses, and that would be Root. So Root is a game that looks very friendly and happy and cheerful on it, look at the board. That doesn't look like a war game, but it kind of is a war game or an area control game. And in this game, you are one of 4 different factions. You are trying to influence the different woodland creatures to join you in your faction, whether you are an itinerant person going around and finding great artifacts, or you're the rebellion, or you're the people in power. I mean, if you take out the cute woodland animals, this could be a pretty strong political game. And there's a lot of these coin games that exist. GMT is the company that makes them. But the fact is that this game took that complexity and made it accessible for everybody. And if that ain't innovative, I don't know what is. So Root, fantastically fun game, and that's my number 6. Number 5 is a game that I didn't like tremendously. I thought there was too much going on, too many things going around. But it did have one really cool interactive thing inside the game that I almost wish they'd cut out the rest of the game and just concentrated on this. So I stuck it on my list, and that's Fewdom. Now, Fewdom, besides having a very wonky, weird cover, is a very in-depth Euro-style game. But what makes Fewdom really interesting are the guilds. In this game, there are 6 different guilds that are on the outside of the board. And in these guilds, you are going to do various actions, pushing cubes from one guild to the other, or maybe back to the previous guild. And so each guild affects the ones outside it. So here we have 3 guilds, and if you do things in this guild, it affects that one. Now, some of this stuff was honestly cumbersome, and maybe there was a little too much, and a little, and then you add in the big board and all that stuff, and I thought that added too much to the game. But the guild system itself and how doing things in this guild affected that guild and vice versa, and then having control of the guilds. If you could cut out the board game and just make a game around that, I would have really been all over that, because I thought that was a really unique, interesting aspect of this game. To have these different guilds and their interaction with each other was really strong, and it was a really cool, almost circular guild structure, which I liked a lot. And that's my number 5, Fewdom. All right, number 4. Another game that I was not a huge fan of, but this game, when I was a kid, I had one of these electronic boards where I would connect wires and make lights turn on, and you just basically learn circuits. Well, this adds real-life circuits to a board game, and that's Forbidden Sky. This is the third in the trilogy of Forbidden Desert and Forbidden Island, or Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert. This is the third one. And in this game, you are building a circuit here, connecting around. Let's show it a little bit bigger. You're connecting this circuit to make this rocket ship launch. And with this, the lights go off. Woo, it doesn't actually launch. And so the game itself is not as pretty as I'd like it to be. The game itself was just wasn't as fun as I wanted it to be. But the idea of connecting this circuit and using actions to do so, I thought was pretty innovative, because it took, again, kind of a mechanical device, bringing technology into a board game, but doing so in a really nice way. And while I might not be a big fan of everything else about Forbidden Sky, the whole act of connecting that circuit to get that rocket ship to launch, I thought was something unique and different, and again brought me back to that whole building the little circuit boards as a kid. So that was the most unique thing there. Number 4, Forbidden Sky. Number 3 is a game in which they took a very serious topic and brought it to life in a very serious way, and that is Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. Now, in this game, a cooperative game, the gameplay itself is okay. You're a bunch of nurses and doctors, and you're trying to keep Billy Kerr alive and giving him a quality of life, trying to figure out what's happened in his past. And that, I think, is the most innovative thing about Billy Kerr. Because in this game, and I'm not showing you a lot from this game because I don't want to spoil it, but you'll see these splotches of memory. And as the game goes by, you're filling in the holes of his memory and discovering what happens. And the game has a lot of unique, interesting ideas. I mean, at its core, it's some basic, keep him alive, which I'm really bad at, by the way, and then also learn his story. But the way his story came together and the way you learned about his life felt artistic, felt like they treated it with a lot of respect. This isn't a silly game at all. I mean, I'm trying to think of any moments of humor in this game at all. It's a very heavy game. But just finding this memory and exploring his memory, I felt was a unique, interesting thing in Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. It's not innovative because of its theme, but it's innovative. I think the theme is part of it, right? But it's innovative because I think it took things seriously. Not the first to do that. This War of Mine does stuff like that. But this whole memory and having partial glimpses into the memory and then matching it with a full memory, I thought was a unique, interesting idea. All right, number 2 for me, very simple mechanism, using magnets in a game. My number 2 is Planet. Planet is, oh man, I really hope this game comes to America because this is a really fun game from Blue Orange Games. In this game, you have these dodecahedrons with metal sides and then magnets that you put on them. Now, I suppose you could have a flat playing board in front of you and you could just place tiles on it. Although it wouldn't work really well because the stuff connects as a globe. I mean, this is one big section and everything can wrap. And then you want to do that because you want to win animal cards that will show up later on. Now, the winning the animal cards and having the big stuff and the drafting, none of that's new. The dodecahedron and putting the tiles on it is a pretty cool aspect to the game, and that's what makes this game unique. Planet, kind of a cool gimmick, and it's a fun, innovative game. This was an easy number 1 for me, though. You might argue whether this game's a gimmick. You might argue whether this idea is a gimmick or whether Fantasy Flight Games is just here, in it for the money. Probably all that's true, but doesn't stop this from being innovative, and that's Keyforge. Now, the gameplay of Keyforge, I think there's some innovation there too. Let's talk about that first of all. I like the game of Keyforge. In Keyforge, you have 3 factions, and each turn you pick one faction. You can play as many cards from that faction as you want. You can attack with that faction. You can mine with that faction. You can use cards of that faction. You can discard cards of that faction. That's it. And so you're balancing between these 3 very equal factions in your deck. This is one of the factions of cards that's in the game. The 4 Horsemen. If you have this, people will buy your deck for a lot of money. So I thought that was a neat aspect. I think the game itself is innovative, but the packaging is innovative. Just like collectible card games is innovative. This is unique. Every single deck ever made is different. And different in the name that they have at the bottom of each one. Each one has a different name. Someone just sold me a deck that had Vasel in the name. I thought that was cool. Not the right spelling, V-A-S-S-A-L, I think, or E-L, but close enough, right? And if someone gets one that's Dice or Dicey Tower, come on, I want it. But a different picture, different name, and a completely different composition of deck. And these decks actually work together. It's not just a bunch of random cards. You get a certain number of cards for each faction. The cards somehow work together to make a deck. I'm sure some decks are better, and people are going to argue till the cows come home on whether this is a good game or not. Hint, good game. But the idea of this, which did not work as well in Discover, their other unique game, but worked really well for Keyforge, is fascinating. I'm really happy with it. I like the fact that I have a deck that no one else in the world has. And I haven't even seen two decks that I thought were super close yet either. So this one, I mean, Discover you could put in here because Discover is innovative too, and both of them have this unique thing, but I'm picking the one that's the better game, which is Keyforge. And whether this will have a mark on our society like Magic the Gathering did, but I'll tell you, when I sat there and they first were explaining it, it almost gave me chills. I was like, wow, I'm seeing a new concept come out. And again, people are going to scream gimmick to the cows come home. But let me tell you this, almost every gaming innovation is a gimmick. CCGs, gimmick. Deck building, gimmick. Worker placement. These are gimmicks, but they're gimmicks, they work, right? And so while Keyforge might be a gimmick, it's one I find fascinating and interesting. And to me, there wasn't even a close second for most innovative game of the year. Alrighty, so before I jump out here, tell me some games that I missed. Nyctophobia. Wow, you're right. My number 5, Nyctophobia. I don't know how I missed that one. I went through all my games. Nyctophobia, a game that simulates you being blind and you feeling your way through. You're right, there's nothing like that. I would have put that probably at number 2. That's just an oversight of my point, but I'm calling it now. Nyctophobia number 2. I don't know how I missed that one. What else? Mosquitoes. I've never played that one. COC, I don't know what that one is. COC. Discover, right. No, I get Discover as an interesting idea. So I wasn't going to put Discover and Keyforge out because they came out the same year. So I picked the first one that was announced, Keyforge. And I also thought not only was it innovative in its that whole unique thing, but also had some innovative mechanisms in it. And yes, I did get the deck, the Vasel deck, thank you. It just came in the mail a couple days ago. Chronicles of Crime. Oh, Chronicles of Crime was on my list. It was number 8. Sorry, I don't know all the acronyms, right? I think TTA is Through the Ages. T2R is Ticket to Ride. There's a lot of these different things that people have, and I don't always know what they are. Sometimes I read a whole bunch of acronyms, and I'm like, huh. I usually just shorten a game down to one word. So rather than say Descent, Journey Through the Darkness, or whatever it's called, I call it Descent. What do you predict for Keyforge? I think that they'll just release another whole set of Keyforge. The deck's compatible with the last one, and you can play against each other. Maybe it's more factions, who knows? I think it has infinite legs in that regard until people get tired of it. Any other questions that were not on the list? So you caught me on Nyctophobia, so that would knock off Tokyo Highway. Goodbye, Tokyo Highway. Nyctophobia number 2. Any predictions for 2019? We'll be doing next week. We'll be doing our top 10 anticipated games for 2019. So that'll be a fun list to do. I like looking ahead at stuff like that, but I mean, we're just wildly guessing. We'll also be probably doing a back talk next week where we look at our predictions for 2018, like our top 10 anticipated games for 2018, and tell you how that landed out. A couple disappointments for me anyway. Weave. Yeah, I heard about Weave, although I passed Weave on to Eric Summerer of the Dice Tower, so he'll be taking a look at that one and messing with that one. I didn't I can't review everything, so I pass that one on to him. I've heard good things about it and heard that it is innovative. I think Keyforge was smart, says Chad, to put this unique aspect to their own IP. Enough of the Star Wars license slowdowns. Preach it! I'm glad they didn't do unique with Star Wars. That would have been bleh to me. But also, I don't think they could. I don't think the theming of Keyforge is unique by any means. It's just a bunch of things. Was the Mind on the list? Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Yeah, the Mind is innovative, for sure. That's one I could have considered for the list. My daughter's shaking her head, but she hates the Mind. But yeah, it's certainly one that I would have considered for the list, for sure. Just One is not innovative. Just One's a cool idea. It just didn't feel that innovative, right? That whole idea of crossing off something that someone else wrote has been around for a long time. It's done in a different way in Just One. I like that, but I didn't think it was innovative. Okay, well, that's it for today, folks, then. I will be back tomorrow with my top 10 party games of the year. Same time, same place. I'll see you guys then. And then next week, we'll be doing 2 players and Q&As and stuff, and New Year's. And then next week, a big top 10 list with all 3 of us doing our top 10 anticipated games of 2018. Dice Tower Kickstarter is not too far away, so that's in mind. And we got other really cool things that we'll be announcing as time goes by in the month of January. There's going to be changes for the Dice Tower. Keep an eye out for it. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the top 10 innovative games of 2018. Also, Nyctophobia.